Claire and Matthew Porter were the couple everyone admired. She was a kind-hearted nurse who never missed a shift, known for her gentle smile and tireless care for patients. Matthew owned a small construction business and was considered hardworking and dependable. They had been married for 7 years, living in a neat white house with blue shutters at the end of Willow Creek Lane. Neighbors often saw them laughing on their porch, tending to their garden, or walking their golden retriever, Milo. To the outside world, they were the picture of happiness, a love story that everyone believed would last forever. But behind the cheerful smiles and polite greetings, things were far from perfect. It started with small changes, the kind people easily overlook. Claire began missing family dinners, telling her sister she was just tired. She stopped going out with her friends, claiming long shifts at the hospital left her exhausted. Matthew, once known for his friendly nature, became withdrawn and easily irritated. He worked late hours, often coming home after midnight. When Claire mentioned feeling uneasy, he brushed her off. She started keeping a journal, something she hadn't done since college, writing about strange noises in the house and the feeling that someone was watching her, even when she was alone. Neighbors noticed tension building. The laughter that once filled the Porter home had been replaced by faint arguments heard through open windows. A few times, Claire was seen leaving the house with red eyes, driving aimlessly around town before returning. Yet no one thought much of it. After all, every couple had their rough patches. Then, one chilly October morning, Claire didn't show up for her hospital shift. At first, her co-workers assumed she was sick, but when hours passed with no response to calls or texts, concern turned into panic. Her supervisor called Matthew, who sounded calm and unconcerned. He told them Claire had gone to visit her mother for a few days. But when police checked, her mother said she hadn't heard from Claire in over a week. When officers arrived at the Porter home, Matthew repeated his story without hesitation. He said she'd left early that morning, taking her car and a small suitcase. Yet her car was still in the garage, keys in the ignition, purse and phone left on the kitchen counter. Nothing was missing, except Claire. Detectives immediately suspected foul play. They noticed Matthew's strangely composed demeanor, his dry tone as he answered questions, his lack of urgency. A search warrant was issued. Upstairs, everything looked normal, almost staged. But in the basement, police found something strange, a newly built wall and the faint smell of fresh paint. Behind it lay a small hidden space, eerily clean, with signs of recent construction. It was there they discovered a gold bracelet engraved with Claire's initials and a few small bloodstains that tests later confirmed were hers. The peaceful image of the Porters' marriage shattered instantly. What everyone thought was love had become something much darker. The perfect couple wasn't perfect at all, one was gone, and the other was hiding the truth. The discovery of the hidden basement space turned the small town of Maple Ridge upside down. Police sealed off the Porter home, and investigators worked around the clock to piece together what had really happened to Claire. The traces of blood found beneath the floorboards were not enough to confirm murder, but they told a story of violence that could not be ignored. Reporters flooded the quiet street, and neighbors who once praised the couple now whispered their theories behind closed curtains. Some believed Claire had finally escaped an abusive marriage. Others thought Matthew had lost control and done something terrible. Matthew, meanwhile, maintained his composure in every interview. He repeated the same lines: Claire had left voluntarily, she was unstable, she had talked about starting over. Somewhere new. To many, he sounded too rehearsed, too calm for a man whose wife had vanished without a trace. Detectives began digging into Matthew's past, hoping to find clues that might explain his behavior. What they uncovered painted a very different picture from the charming husband everyone thought they knew. His business, once described as thriving, was drowning in debt. Several of his employees told police that Matthew had been under intense financial pressure and often lost his temper on job sites. Records revealed that just 3 months before Claire's disappearance, he had taken out a large life insurance policy in her name, worth $500,000. When questioned about it, he claimed it was her idea, to secure their future. But those close to Claire insisted she would never agree to something like that. At the same time, investigators learned that Claire had contacted a divorce lawyer only 2 weeks before she went missing. She had not yet filed the papers, but she had made detailed notes about her finances and plans to move out. Hidden inside one of her nursing textbooks, police found a flash drive containing scanned copies of bank statements and photos of bruises on her arms. The timestamps matched days when neighbors recalled hearing arguments. It became clear that Claire had been preparing to leave quietly, and Matthew might have discovered her plan. With growing suspicion, police began tracking Matthew's movements in the days surrounding her disappearance. Surveillance cameras caught his truck leaving home around 2 a.m. on the night Claire was last seen, driving toward a wooded area outside town. He was gone for nearly 3 hours before returning home. When confronted, Matthew said he had been clearing his head after a fight, but he couldn't explain why he had dirt on his boots and traces of cement dust in the bed of his truck. The town's image of the perfect husband began to crumble. Each new piece of evidence made the story darker. Yet still incomplete. There was no body, no confession, no final proof. Friends who once defended Matthew now avoided him, afraid of what they might learn next. Late at night, police continued their searches, fields, ponds, abandoned buildings, but nothing surfaced. The mystery deepened, and with every passing day, one question haunted everyone in Maple Ridge: where was Claire Porter, and how far would her husband go to make sure no one ever found her? Weeks passed, and the search for Claire Porter turned into one of the most intense investigations Maple Ridge had ever seen. Volunteers joined police in scouring forests, rivers, and construction sites connected to Matthew's business, but each lead ended in disappointment. The media coverage grew, transforming the quiet suburban mystery into national news. Reporters swarmed the town, interviewing anyone who had ever crossed paths with the Porters. Claire's smiling face appeared on television screens across the country, while Matthew's photo sat beside it under the headline, "Husband of Missing Nurse Still Under Suspicion." Despite the pressure, Matthew refused to show emotion. He appeared on camera once, wearing a black jacket, speaking softly about how much he missed his wife. Yet even in that moment, something about his words felt hollow, like a man performing a role rather than grieving a loss. Behind the scenes, detectives were piecing together a puzzle that made less sense with each discovery. Forensics experts returned to the Porter home for another examination. This time, they uncovered something that had been overlooked before: a small camera hidden inside a smoke detector in the living room. The footage on its memory card shocked investigators. It showed Matthew pacing the house late at night, talking to himself, checking locks repeatedly, and sometimes standing at the bottom of the stairs, staring into the darkness for long periods. But there was one recording that froze everyone in the room: a grainy clip. Claire entering the basement around midnight on the night she disappeared. She never came back up. The next frame showed Matthew sealing the door with plastic sheeting. After that, the video abruptly ended. Police immediately brought him in for questioning. The evidence was damning, but Matthew stuck to his story. He claimed Claire had become paranoid and had locked herself away in the basement to scare him. When asked about the construction materials he bought that week, cement, metal drums, and plastic lining, he said they were for a new renovation project. His answers grew less convincing by the hour. Officers noted how carefully he tried to control his breathing, how every response was measured, as though he had practiced for this exact conversation. Then, a new lead emerged that made everything even stranger. A woman from another town, nearly 200 miles away, called the police claiming she had seen Claire at a gas station a few days earlier. The woman described her as nervous but alive, wearing sunglasses and a hooded jacket. Investigators followed up immediately, pulling security footage from nearby businesses. For a moment, it looked like Claire might have escaped and started a new life. But when they reviewed the footage, the woman in question only resembled Claire, similar build, same hair color, but not her. The hope that she was still alive faded once again. As the case dragged on, the town's fascination turned to unease. People began avoiding Willow Creek Lane, unwilling to walk past the Porter house. Its windows stayed dark, its garden overgrown, and its silence unbearable. Everyone felt the same chilling truth settling in, the kind of truth that no one wanted to say aloud: Claire Porter wasn't missing anymore. She was gone, and the man who knew why was still walking free. By the 4th month of Claire Porter's disappearance, the investigation had reached a breaking point. Detectives had evidence, suspicion, and motive, but still no body. Without it, prosecutors couldn't move forward with a murder charge. The case began to stall, and Matthew Porter used that to his advantage. He hired a skilled defense attorney who painted him as a misunderstood husband, a victim of gossip and media hysteria. Public sympathy began to shift slightly, especially after Matthew appeared on a local TV interview, crying as he said he just wanted his wife home. To those who didn't know the full story, he looked like a man broken by tragedy. But to the investigators who had spent months studying him, it looked like a performance rehearsed for the cameras. Then, a small but crucial clue reignited the entire case. One of Matthew's former employees came forward with an uneasy confession. He told police that Matthew had asked him to help pour concrete behind an unused property 2 days after Claire disappeared. He had thought it was part of a foundation job, but something about Matthew's behavior that day bothered him. He kept looking over his shoulder, refused to let anyone near the mix, and paid in cash. Investigators immediately searched the area but found nothing on the surface. Still, they marked the site for future excavation, suspecting that the truth might lie beneath the soil. Meanwhile, new evidence began surfacing from Matthew's digital footprint. Detectives obtained his deleted search history and found disturbing phrases: how to dissolve evidence, can police trace missing persons through cement, and how long does blood last in dry air. Each search was made in the days before Claire's disappearance. The pattern was clear: he had been planning something. But Matthew still refused to talk, even when confronted with the evidence. He sat in silence, staring at the table, occasionally smirking as if he knew something no one else did. His confidence was chilling. Just as police prepared to make another move, an unexpected twist threw the case into chaos. A woman called the Maple Ridge Police Department claiming to be Claire Porter. Her voice was shaky, but she provided personal details about Claire's life that only she could know: family names, childhood memories, even the security code to the Porter's house. She said she had run away after discovering Matthew's violent side and was now ready to come forward. The call sent shockwaves through the investigation. If it was really Claire, everything would change. Detectives traced the call to a motel in South Carolina and rushed there immediately. When they arrived, they found a woman who looked remarkably like Claire: same height, same hairstyle, and even the same small scar on her left cheek. She told them she had been living under a false name out of fear for her life. But something about her didn't feel right. Her mannerisms were off, her story inconsistent. DNA tests confirmed the truth: she wasn't Claire at all. She was an imposter, someone who had met Matthew months earlier through an online forum for missing persons cases. Investigators suspected he had convinced her to pose as his wife to create doubt in the case. It was a desperate move, and it backfired spectacularly. Now, detectives knew for certain, Matthew Porter wasn't just hiding something. He was trying to rewrite the entire story. The revelation of the imposter shattered whatever defense Matthew Porter had left. The moment police proved the woman was not Claire, everything shifted. Public opinion turned sharply against him, and the case that had begun to fade from the headlines exploded back into national attention. The Maple Ridge community, once cautious to judge, now spoke openly about the monster they believed had been living among them. Investigators felt renewed determination. They knew Matthew had orchestrated the fake Claire to manipulate the narrative, and if he was desperate enough to stage such an elaborate lie, he was running out of control, and out of time. Detectives revisited every piece of evidence, starting with the one lead that had always seemed promising: the unused property where Matthew's former employee had helped him pour concrete. A search team arrived with ground-penetrating radar, and the readings immediately showed unusual density patterns beneath a patch of earth near an unfinished shed. The soil was disturbed, layered unevenly. Officers began digging carefully, removing shovelfuls of dirt as the autumn wind swept through the trees. Hours passed before one of the investigators' shovels struck metal. They uncovered the top of a large sealed drum, coated with rust and hardened cement. The site went silent as officers exchanged grim looks. They all knew what they were about to find. The drum was lifted from the ground and transported to a forensic lab. Inside, wrapped tightly in plastic, was the body of a woman. Dental records and DNA confirmed what everyone had feared: it was Claire Porter. Her body showed signs of blunt force trauma, and traces of a sedative were found in her system. Forensic experts determined she had died the night she vanished. The fresh construction, the hidden basement, the imposter, everything now fit into a single chilling timeline. Matthew had murdered his wife, hidden her body in the drum, and tried to cover it up through layers of lies and manipulation. When confronted with the evidence, Matthew finally broke his calm exterior. During interrogation, he didn't confess, but his silence was telling. His lawyer withdrew from the case, and prosecutors officially charged him with first-degree murder, obstruction of justice, and evidence tampering. The news spread fast. Reporters flooded the courthouse, cameras flashing as he was led inside in handcuffs. He kept his head down, no longer the confident man who once smiled for interviews. His downfall was complete. At the trial, the details of his deception stunned the jury. The prosecution painted him as a calculating man who saw his wife not as a partner but as a problem standing between him and financial relief. The defense tried to argue that Claire's death was accidental, a fight gone wrong, but the evidence was overwhelming. The hidden wall, the staged disappearance, the insurance policy, all spoke louder than any words he could offer. When the verdict was read, the courtroom sat in heavy silence, guilty on all counts. Matthew Porter was sentenced to life in prison without parole, his final expression unreadable as he was led away. The story that began as a picture of suburban perfection had ended in unimaginable tragedy, leaving the town of Maple Ridge forever haunted by what lay beneath its calm surface.